Greetings, you're listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network, the UK's biggest paranormal network. I'm David Young and this is Paranormal Dimensions. Now, I started something on the last episode, giving a call out to people who are visiting my Facebook page for the Paranormal Dimensions, and maybe putting a request for a shout out. I'm giving a call out today for Dennis Koch, is in Alberta, Canada. There's Ronnie Dugdale of Gorleston-on-Sea, Norfolk, UK. And we've got Peter McGarry of Limerick, Ireland. Hello to all of you, and I hope you're going to be listening. Right, now on the last episode, we were talking. I was talking to Spyros Melaris. Now he was responsible for the Alien Autopsy. I won't say responsible. It doesn't sound right, does it? But you might find this second episode a little bit confusing if you haven't heard the first. So really, you need the podcast will be available to listen to alongside this. So hopefully it won't be too confusing for you. We'll try to catch up with where we were anyway. We did leave at a convenient point, I think. But anyway, I'd like to welcome back Mr. Spyros Melaris.
Yeah, hello David, how are you?
Hello Spyros, lovely, thank you. And it's welcome back. And I did actually say about a couple of weeks' time, didn't I? But I thought we were going on such a good roll of that. I think we needed to sort of do it pretty quick so we could sort of continue where we left off, kind of thing.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll be all right. I think where we left off was, I think we were talking about John Humphreys, weren't we? Or you were saying about maybe he was going to sign off any further interest in his dummy creation. If you would call it that.
Yeah, he hasn't so much as signed off interest. What he's basically said is, and he might change his mind, but you never know. Yeah. But he's basically, his position at the moment is he's not going to take any interviews. He's not going to talk to anybody. He's just going to lay low. Yeah. And I've got to respect that, and don't blame him. But he might change his mind. You never know.
I gave it some thought today. I thought, maybe if this movie makes an awful lot of money, it might be on your ear roll to say, "Oh, that was my dummy."
No, well, it isn't his dummy. That's the thing. I don't like calling it a dummy.
No, I don't know what to. Yeah.
I know. It is a dummy, but it's a lot of other things. I mean,
yeah, sure, yeah.
But I just think dummy sounds a little bit too.
No, it's an alien model.
Yeah, a model.
Yeah. I apologise for that. Yeah, it was the wrong term to use.
Yeah, don't worry. It's not so much his dummy, because obviously it was my movie. I mean, John worked for me.
Yeah.
So he worked for me. He got paid. He had some input in the creation of it, and as I did, we had some fantastic meetings where we sat down in a coffee shop called Fabrizi's on Finchley Road, and we chewed the fat and went through it and decided why this creature had to have 6 fingers and 6 toes, why it didn't have a belly button, why it had a distended stomach. All these elements were all very carefully thought out. So John was involved in the creative process, but I don't think he could ever claim it's his. But that said, once the movie's made, I am going to cross everyone's palm with silver. Only because it's the right thing to do. So that's But I think
I know you're a very honourable man. You do a lot for the homeless and everything as well, don't you? And
you know what? I don't like to. Yeah, I don't like to.
No, I want to put it out there. You're very much of a humanitarian, and I really respect that.
Thank you. But you know what it is. I know this is going to sound very far fetched, okay? But it's absolutely true. I was brought up. When I was born to the age of 4, I lived in a tin hut in Cyprus. It was a tin corrugated metal construction, one long tube. It had bedroom one end and it had a kitchen the other end, and the bathroom was outside. It was a bucket with a hose. Right? So that's that's my grandparents' house. And my parents came to England when I was soon after I was born, and I went and joined them when I was 4 years old. So in England, so the humble beginnings were actually really good times. I mean, we didn't want for anything, but we look at kids today with their mobile phones and their Xboxes and all the rest of it. And it is a humble beginning, and I'm glad I had that. Since then, I've had everything I've ever wanted. I've lived in amazing houses. I've had lovely cars. I've done pretty much anything I wanted to do. But I never forget that people are still living in tin houses, and there's some people in England, in London especially, that live in the street.
Absolutely.
And you know, and it could be you and I, God forbid, right? But we're not that far away.
No, they say you're about 3 moves away from it, aren't you? You know, something disastrous happens.
Doesn't take much. I met a guy the other day who was homeless because he had a divorce, and the wife took everything. And in essence, he just couldn't afford to be anywhere. So and that's that's a crime in itself. But anyway, that's another story.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to put that out there because I do know that you do keep it quiet. You don't say anything about it, but I think people should know what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, if anybody wants to help, if you go on Facebook, I've got a little group there called Bags of Love, and you can make a donation if you want to. I don't preach. I don't.
No. And absolutely. And what I'll do on my Paranormal Dimensions page, I'll actually put a link to that as well, Spyros.
Thank you. That'd be great. That would be really good. Yeah. All right. Let's get back.
Anyway, we better get back to the what we're here for.
all things alien. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of left off. We were talking about the film and everything, and can't quite. I think you were talking. You were going to go into the actual rest of the room where all the bits and pieces that were made up, like you were talking about the telephone.
Yes.
You were probably going to go into like the wire and everything, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, no. I'll tell you what. That's been done to death. Let's do some new stuff.
Okay.
That'd be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, some stuff that hasn't been out. I've done so many interviews and stuff.
Sure,
so
yeah.
That stuff's out there. The curly wire was put there because it wasn't there when I bought the phone. The phone had a straight wire, and we bought an upgrade kit, which was available at the time, and we changed it to a curly wire because I wanted people to say it can't be real because they didn't have curly wires in 1947, and of course they did in hospitals and schools and military institutions, so it puts it back to being real again. So that's what the wire was.
That's what I think. People imagine it came out around about the 60s or something like that, didn't it? I actually thought that, to be honest, but yeah.
But that's the whole point. You see, some people say, it's got to be a fake because, and then somebody that actually knows what the truth is says, no, actually that was available as an upgrade, and it's usually governmental institutions that bought the upgrade, and that puts it back into the realms of being real. But let me tell you about a few things that you wouldn't think about looking at, and I haven't spoken about before.
Great.
The autopsy table. Okay. What that is, it's made out of, these poles that you have in the streets that people put up for sale signs, estate agents put up for sale signs. Well, I went out to, there was we made the set in a house in Camden Town, and outside there was one of these lorries, the flatback lorries that had all the for sale signs on it, and the guys were putting the for sale signs up onto houses or removing them. So I needed some wood, so I went out there, and I said to the guys, I need about 50 lengths of this 2x2 wood that you've got there. Can I give you some money for it? And they said, well, no, not really. We're not really selling it. I said, well, look, if you want to sell it to me, I'm happy to give you some money. But if you don't sell it to me, when you leave, I'm going to take down all the ones you just put up. and I said, and then I'm going to get them for free, and you're going to end up putting them back up again, right? And I said, so I'm just saving you the trouble, and I want to give you a bit of money in your pocket. And they said, well, how many do you need? I said, well, I need about 50 lengths. And they said, well, we'll give you 40. So I got 40 lengths of these 2x2 from them, and I gave them some money, and I built the set in the room by making a frame out of it. But I also made a frame for the autopsy table with the same wood.
Oh, wow.
Now the problem, of course, is that now I've got an empty frame and I need to cover it, but it needs to be metal. And there was a car repair shop called Morelli's, which is under the bridge on Camden Road. It's not there anymore, but it was very well known at the time. And they sold sheet metal steel in the length of 6 foot by 4 foot. And so I ordered a sheet of this stuff, and they delivered it. And my dilemma now, of course, was an autopsy table would be at least 6 foot long, if not longer, because You know, you've got all sorts of sizes of people. This is not made for an alien; it's made for a human being.
It has to be about 7 foot, I would have thought.
That's right. Yeah, so they'll be big enough to put a guy who's 6'4" on it, for example. So I thought, okay, well, I've got to cheat it because I've only got a sheet of metal which is 6 foot in length. Okay, and so what I did was I made the table, which was 5 foot 6 inches. And the overhang, the flat part at the feet end, was 4 inches. So I could afford to bend over 4 inches from the 6 foot, and I had 5 foot 6 going to the back. Okay, and because it's film and angles and the way you film, it looks a bit bigger than it really is. But the problem that I had was it didn't go right to the back because I can fold it over to the front and make it look nice at the front, because I needed to make it look like a solid metal table, you know. So what I did was I took it up to the back and it just folded over like a half an inch over the lip. So now that I've told you that, if you look at the footage and you go to the section where we're sawing the skull cap off to remove the brain, if you look at the back of the table, don't look at anything else, just look at the back of the table, you will see the wooden part and the metal folded over. Okay?
Yeah.
And of course you're not looking because you're too busy looking at a brain.
Yeah.
You're not looking at the back of the table because you've already bought that it's a real table. So there's nothing to see here, right? But now that I've pointed that out, you're going to go now and look at it and you'll see actually that's not the most tidy job in the world, and it's very clearly homemade.
Yeah, because obviously your eyes are going to be focused on that brain, aren't they? Yes,
that's right.
Yeah.
You're all eyes fixed. You're watching. You know what we did with the brain was, which was a nice little effect. What we did was John sculpted a mold, which was the shape of the actual brain, the whole brain. But what we did was we layered. We did it 2 times actually. We did 2 autopsies. The first one we did it with raspberry jelly, but it was too dark. So the one we know and love as the Alien Autopsy now today, we used gelatin. So what we did was put a sheet, like a smear of gelatin into the mold, so that you've got a layer, and then we put 2 sheep's brains side by side, which we thought would be quite snazzy because one sheep's brain's too small. And if you would use, for example, a pig's brain or a pig's brain or something bigger, you'd end up with a more human-looking brain, and that wasn't any good to us. We needed to go away from being human. So the 2 sheep's brains side by side gave it an unusual shape and size, and it was clearly not a human brain. So we put the 2 sheep's brains in, and then we covered the whole lot in gelatin. But that in itself wasn't good enough, because if you're familiar with jelly or gelatin, if you make something out of like a jelly, if you try and pick it up, it falls to pieces. You know, it breaks. And of course we had to pick it up to put it into the head, into the skull, because what we did was we cut the skull cap off, and then we hollowed the head out because it's full of foam. So we stopped filming, hollowed the head out, put the brain into the head, put the skull cap back, started filming again as if we were just finishing off sawing, and lo and behold, it was inside the head. But of course, it wasn't there all along. But in order for it not to fall apart, what we did was we covered it in latex. So there's a skin of latex around this gelatin molded brain. Once we put it in, and you've got this latex skin, you've got this wonderful effect where the surgeon is able to pierce the membrane, which is the silicone skin, and it looks like it's a membrane of skin around the brain. It's beautiful. It's a lovely effect.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's as simple as that. That's all that was. So you're looking at all the membrane being opened and the brain coming out and the bits, being placed on the thing. You're not looking at the autopsy table. But if you look at it now, you'll see the autopsy table clearly isn't solid metal and it's homemade. Some people, in some photos, the autopsy table looks like it's got square legs. It actually hasn't. It's the legs are square underneath because I used the 2x2 legs, the same material to make the legs. But what I wanted a more substantial looking leg, so it looked like a factory made thing rather than a spindly piece of wood. So what I did was I went to the local carpet shop and I asked them for the cardboard rolls that carpets are rolled onto. So I got some of these carpet roll, the cardboard inserts.
Yeah, the tubes, I think. Yeah.
Tube, yeah, like a cardboard tube. And what I did, I cut it to length, sprayed it matte black, and I put it over the leg. So now the leg looks round as opposed to square, which looks more machined. So if it was homemade, nobody would go to that trouble of machining a leg, and So it just gives another level of impossibility, another level of, well, why did they go that bit further? Well, actually, it's a bit of cardboard, and if you were there to touch it, you'd see that it wasn't solid. But because it's filmed and it's all part of a sturdy wooden table, you buy the fact that it must be metal that follows on with the metal top. So yeah, so there's lots of little signs that tells you it's not real. But you wouldn't look. You wouldn't know to look.
Yeah. Did you not say? I think you used some wallpaper paste tables as well. Did you not somewhere?
Well, yeah. That was on the debris footage.
Yeah. Yeah.
I built a tent which was inside the room, and so that tent, I put 2 collapsible tables inside that they would have if there was a military situation. They would have these tables. And what I did was I took the wallpaper paste tables that you buy, the ready-made ones, and I cut them down so that they were shorter, and then just put them all back together again. So I took about a foot off each half, so they didn't look like wallpaper tables.
Yeah.
Okay, because the first thing you do is if you saw this full size as a wallpaper table, you would immediately think, I've seen this before, because the shape and the style and the whole thing is something familiar to you. But if you see it as a smaller, more out of proportion shape, your mind doesn't go towards a wallpaper table. It just goes towards, it's just a table. It's just And what we did was we painted the table. First of all, I sprayed it matte black. Then I sprayed it with a dark brown colour. And then I sprayed it with a lighter grey. And then with a Brillo pad, once it's all dry, you then rub it all over the top, and you take layers of paint off, so you start to reveal bits of brown and bits of black and the bits of white. Well, obviously in black and white, all it is shades of grey, but it shows an aged table. It shows a table that's been weathered and used outside, and it doesn't look like a brand new wallpaper table, So yeah, that's a good point, by the way. That's
Yeah, it's just something I remember from your presentations that you did. It made me giggle actually when you were telling us about that.
Well, a lot of it's funny. A lot of it is very funny.
Well, it is when you know the whole story. It is quite funny.
Yeah, yeah. Because there's liberties. We're just taking liberties the whole time, and you don't know, because you're never going to see where it came from, how it started. All you see is the end result, and you think, wow, this is a groundbreaking thing. But in actual fact, the truth is really funny. I bought a gas mask from Camden Market, and I wasn't sure whether or not the gas masks in America were the same as they were in England, and I took a big chance. I just put it in the set, and I thought, you know what, it's going to be the same, and it's not going to be very visible, and a lot of people miss it. But if you look in the debris footage on the centre pole of the tent, you'll see hanging down there's a gas mask. And it's just a bit of padding. It's just another thing to see, and it's another layer of making it real. You keep adding things, and it's too much. It becomes too much. They wouldn't go to that much trouble. Well, actually, we did. We went to enormous trouble.
I know you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you decided to do the alien with 6 fingers, I think there was a bit of a story about that, wasn't there? Because you decided, did we cover that last time on the show? I think you did, didn't you? You mentioned a little bit of it.
Yeah.
You did mention about the 6 fingers, but you didn't actually go into detail about it.
Well, I like collecting little stories, mythology and philosophy and various fables, and so I collect them. They sit in the back of my mind. I'm amused by them, and some of the things that I picked up as I went along was a number of people or fabled people or situations in history talk about 6 fingers and 6 toes, and I found that fascinating. Cleopatra had 6 fingers and 6 toes. So immediately you've got Cleopatra, ancient Egypt, the pyramids and the hieroglyphs, and you've got these 6 fingers and 6 toes. It all go together. Then you talk about the fallen angels in the Bible, the fallen angels that were put on earth to look after Adam and Eve and Adam and Eve's children. These angels had 6 fingers and 6 toes, and they fell from grace when they procreated with Adam and Eve's daughters. You know the story? I'm not sure if you know the story.
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
So what would the offspring be? You know, that was a big question for me. I thought, okay, these angels who are giants and 6 fingers and 6 toes have babies with humans. I wonder what the baby would be. You know, would it have 6 fingers and 6 toes? Would it? You know, so that's a nice open story. And then I found out later as well that there are carvings in with American Indians on totem poles and in caves and all sorts, and there are giants who in the drawings, in the cave drawings and stuff, they're these giants that are running alongside buffalo, and they pick up the buffalo under their arm. That's how big these things are, but they're human looking, you know, and they've got 6 fingers and 6 toes. Okay, so around the globe we've got lots of stories about 6 fingers and 6 toes without the internet and without all that communication. So no one's talked to anybody about it. So it's not like the American Indians have spoken to the Aztecs or to the ancient Egyptians or people in Jerusalem that wrote the Bible. You know, all these people, they couldn't have.
Yeah, no, that does fascinate me actually. How they actually, you know, civilizations are so far apart that they couldn't have influenced each other, could they? Really?
Yeah, so they either had the same idea, the same fairy story, or something's influenced them. But if you go one step further, right, we talk about biblical times and stuff. Remember Samson and Goliath?
Yeah.
The story. Well, Goliath had 6 fingers and 6 toes. The giant Goliath.
Yeah.
So there's lots and lots of things in history, people in history and creatures in history that have 6 fingers, 6 toes. So I thought, if we're going to a advanced creature, somebody from the future, they wouldn't have 3 fingers and a claw, which is what most of the eyewitnesses said they saw when they saw aliens. They've always said they had 3 fingers. And you know what? That's a bit jokey, and it tells me they've made it up. In my head, I don't know for a fact, right? But in my head, it sounds like a made-up story because they haven't thought it through. What should we do to describe an alien? I know, let's make it green. That's a jokey thing to do. Let's give it antennas on its head, and big black eyes and 3 fingers. You see, already this is a ridiculous creature. It's something that somebody who's not educated.
Yeah, when you think about it, you couldn't do much with like that, could you? With your fingers like that.
No. It's not advanced. It's going backwards. It's becoming a chicken's foot. So you don't. It's an advance. Advance is another finger, because we will work on keyboards. We work on, you know, you'd think another finger would be very useful.
Yeah, you're right.
1 finger less would be less useful. So when I talk about people not being educated, I don't mean they're stupid. I don't mean they're less educated than myself. I'm talking about less educated in creative arts.
Yeah.
Because if you have a creative flair, you can either do the easy thing, which is the cheesy thing, or you can really go for the sophisticated. And if you go for the sophisticated, you think it through and you make it plausible. And this is what we did. John is a sculptor. John is into anatomy. He knows about anatomy. He studied anatomy because he sculpts the human form, right? And you need to know where every muscle is, every bone is, so he knows his stuff there. I've got an A level in human biology. I'm interested in the subject. I'm not an expert by any means of the imagination, but I am an artist, and together we sat and said, okay, we both agree these creatures wouldn't have 5 fingers and they wouldn't have 3 fingers. So it's got to be 4 fingers and a thumb, an opposable thumb. So, sorry, 5 fingers and an opposable thumb. So there's 6 in total. So we then looked up in the medical journals and we found that there's a condition called polydactyly, where human beings grow an extra toe or an extra finger, but very rare. In fact, we didn't find a single instance where one person had 6 fingers and 6 toes. So that's a very unusual thing. It might have happened in history.
I've seen one recently on Facebook. Actually, somebody put a picture up of a girl with 6 toes.
Yeah, but 6 fingers and 6 toes.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the fingers. So
yeah, what you find is they either have 6 fingers or 6 toes, or just on one hand, but they don't have them like on all 4. Like on both feet. Yeah, appendages. So going from that, the other thing that we found is polydactyly didn't mean they had perfectly formed fingers and hands and feet. They had a little finger sprouting out sideways, for example. So it looked odd. It didn't look useful. It wasn't a working finger. It was just another growth, right? So our challenge was to make a creature that had hands with 6 fingers and 6 toes that looked really good. Didn't look like an extra bit added on. It looked like this is how this thing was born, and it was born in perfect symmetry. So there can't be any question this is polydactyly. It's not a human being with polydactyly. So John did an amazing job, because everybody that I've seen that's tried to copy the creature has always made the hands a bit too wide because they've had to add another finger.
Wow.
Where John hasn't started off with a 5-fingered hand and added a finger. John sculpted the entire thing from scratch, and it takes a very, very talented sculptor to do that. So that scores a lot of points, because the organic quality of the sculpt was so good that it looked real. It didn't look like somebody's added a finger, or it's it's a bit jokey, a little bit. It was important that our creature was sinister and not cuddly. And I don't know if that makes sense what I've just said.
Oh yeah, it does.
The Anton-Deck alien doesn't look sinister at all. It was made family friendly, so you could have a younger audience watching it, and there wasn't nudity like ours. There's nudity. You actually see a vagina. You see, where the Anton-Deck one was a bit tamer. Because it was colour, it was pink, it was made to look a bit more friendly. It actually had a bigger head, so it became a little bit less sinister. The eyes were friendlier,
Yeah, more cartoony, I suppose.
Yeah. I call it bubblegum. It's just a bit of bubblegum. Where with us, it was hardcore, sinister. This is scary.
Yeah.
And it was important that happened, because when you're making a film about an alien, you run the risk of it being jokey, because it can't be. It's just got to be funny. It can't be serious. If you look at what Steven Spielberg did with E.T., he made it cute. Because it's for kids. If he made it sinister and scary, it would be a whole different film. So what we wanted to do is to make something that looked like it could hurt you, looked like it could have an ulterior motive, looked like it could be aggressive, looked like it was quite powerful. So we didn't go for the little thin neck that holds a big head. That didn't make sense. Anatomically, it didn't make sense. So we needed to make it of quite a strong neck, to hold this big head. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. You'd always get people arguing, well, how do we know what's in an alien's head, and how do we know how heavy it is? We don't. But if you're starting from scratch and making it up, you might as well make it up and make it believable, right? That's the bottom line. Is if you make it too sci-fi, you could go off the other end of this is not believable. It's not credible. So the 6 fingers and 6 toes were credible, and when you start to scratch the surface and say, well, hold on a minute, the eyewitnesses said that they saw 3 fingers and a claw and a thumb. So this one's got 6 fingers. So how does that work? Well, the double whammy, of course, is that why would a hoaxer go against what the people said they saw? So it's a double bluff. Well, it has to be real, because a hoaxer would just go with what they've said.
Yeah.
It would be, So there's lots of layers, but when my book finally comes out, you will see there's a whole chapter about the backstory of who this alien is, where it came from, how it reproduces, what it eats, how it lives, how it dies, all the things about it. So because I had to write that story before I filmed this alien, because although it's a dead alien on a table, everything about it before it died needed to be true in the dead body. Okay, so when you're cutting it open, when you're looking at it and inspecting it and trying to find any semblance of order, you need to have something tangible to fall on. And experts will either pick up on these things or they won't. And that was the gamble we took. You know, all these things about the six fingers and six toes, very few people picked up on the fact that, hold on, you know, that this is quite a common thing in ancient times. So is this us from the future, but the same us that was visiting the past? Okay, so were these futuristic creatures visiting the Egyptians and asking them to do stuff for them? Build us these pyramids and we'll make you kings and you'll look after the minions and we'll give you immense wealth. And that makes a lot of sense, because if you... I'm making it up, by the way, but it's not,
no.
You know, I don't believe it's true, right? I don't believe it's true, but it makes a lot of sense, because if you go by what the ancient Egyptians, and even in modern days, if you go by the ancient Greeks and what they tell you about all the many gods that they were, there were plenty of gods, right? And they're all different gods. Now, what if the gods they're talking about are aliens? What if those aliens materialized and said, we need you to do this, this, and this. We'll show you how to build these pyramids. We need to do that, and we need to do the other. And we'll give you wealth. So you're going to be a king, and we need you to muster the troops. And we'll give you lots of money so you can pay them, and they'll respect you because you're the king. And but we're your gods. You answer to us. And that's what they do. They go off and they answer to the gods that they talk about. And for me, that fitted quite nicely. So the six fingers and six toes, I felt, lended itself to that. And then I had this issue where I still don't believe, and this is me, by the way, and I don't, you know, I'm not going to go against anybody else's beliefs, but I don't believe that aliens are visiting our planet.
Right.
I don't think they are. And I tell you why I say that. I've met too many people that have told me they've seen aliens and they haven't. I've caught them out that they haven't. Right. Okay, so I don't know who to believe. Then I speak to scientists who tell me, and if you do these, you can just do a very, very easy research yourself, and you'll find that we haven't found life in our galaxy, and that's hundreds of light years away, right? As far as we can go, we haven't found life. So it's got to be beyond that. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying I don't think they've visited our planet. And the reason I say that today, they might have done in the past because they may have lived nearer. Let's make up a story, right? What if aliens lived on a planet nearer to us that was habitable at that time, okay? And it wasn't going to be habitable. They knew it was about to self-implode or something was going to happen to it. Water was going to run out, or air, or whatever it is they needed. And they are creatures like us that need water, and they need nourishment, and you know. So they came to the nearest planet, and that's possible because we weren't traveling in space at that time. So we don't know where they were and whether or not they were on a planet not too far away. And it's not too difficult to get to us.
Well, there is a theory that we are actually the remains of what maybe it may have came here many years ago. So
you know what, that makes sense, because if you speak to the scientists, they'll tell you that the human race were all Negroes at the beginning.
Yep.
Everyone was black, so they're the human race, and then slowly that gene pool got diluted with various other DNA. So that would explain how the Chinese, for example, and the Japanese are so different from us, and yet they're human. They are different, and so are other Asians, and black people are different in their own way, and all sorts of people. They're all different, but we're all human. So is it possible we share we share DNA, and we have had a dilution from an outside source. You know what? I don't know. It's a good story. It's a great story.
Yeah,
It's a good
I mean, you could make a lot of money if you could actually answer that anyway.
yeah, yeah.
I know there's
But
millions of theories about it.
yeah, but if that's the case, right? And they did live nearer, and they did come here, and we are their cousins. That's fine, right? I don't have a problem with that. I don't know. But here's the thing now, right? For a species that's alive and living in a galaxy somewhere, for them to come to Earth, they would have to be able to live forever, because we know that if we were to travel the distance we need to go, we will die before we get there, because we're going to live to 100 years old. If we try and speed up the process, our bodies will break up in the G forces. So there's limitations as to what we can do to get there quicker. Okay. Now, we've all heard the story about cockroaches and how they would sustain more G forces, and they'd sustain more radiation than we would. So in an event of a nuclear explosion, the things that will be left over will be the cockroaches. Right? That's the story we hear, right? So I thought, well, I've got to make my alien either live forever, which I don't know how to do that. While we were talking about it at the time, we didn't know how to do that. How do we make it live forever and show that, and actually show it? Because just saying it and it's just a body sitting there, nobody knows unless they speak to us. And we tell them, oh yeah, they live forever. That's why they've been. No, but you're not going to talk to me. You're going to have to look at it and make your own mind up. But we thought, why don't we just not give it a belly button? Therefore, if it hasn't got a belly button, it wasn't born. Okay? And if it wasn't born, was it grown? Now that's a nice, interesting situation now, because if all you got to do when you wear out your body is go into a new one, you can now live forever, can't you? Right? So the belly button missing is because it's not born, it's grown. It's a genetically created body, right? We're not far from that today. We can do that today. We've done it with sheep. So is it possible that the spirit can come out of this body and go into this body? So if that is the correct way to go, then these astronauts, these alien astronauts that travel through time and space or whatever, and they're thousands of light years away, millions of light years away, they can still get here because it's only a case of wearing out a body and slipping into a new one. And then I thought, well, it's an awful long time to travel in this little thing, right? In this spaceship. And how, you can make it very big, and you can put a swimming pool in it and tennis courts. You can make it, but it's still going to be a long time. And I thought, you know what? If we make it the sort of thing that people say they've seen, all right, why can't these creatures hibernate? So what they do is they reduce their blood pressure and their metabolism and everything to a point of near death, and they just sleep. So that way, the body needs to be nourished whilst they're sleeping, but not as much as if they were alive and moving around. Very much like any cold-blooded animal that we know hibernate on Earth. So they can sleep for half a year. So I thought, okay, if we make them so they can hibernate, then they would have, in my design, I said, well, they can have two stomachs. Okay, so I created a situation so they had two stomachs, and it's all part of the backstory. The first stomach takes in the nutrients by way of bacteria, and that bacteria then filters into the second stomach, which is where the bacteria is then fed into the body. Okay, so one stomach creates bacteria, and it's self-creating, because if you just leave it, more and more bacteria keeps creating. Okay, so it becomes more and more and more and more. The very same way that if you were to leave something to get moldy, and the bacteria level would just carry on growing, right? So that was the way that I figured it. I thought, well, if that happened, and then the body died, then that bacteria would still be alive, and it would carry on producing, but the body wouldn't be consuming. So what would happen? The stomach would then blow out, wouldn't it? So we made it look like it was pregnant deliberately, because the backstory is that's just gas. It's just bacteria growing in a stomach that's not feeding the second stomach. So because it's dead. So if it dies, the second stomach's not consuming the bacteria. The bacteria carries on reproducing, and therefore it needs to expand and expand and expand, and eventually the stomach looks like a pot belly. But we made the creature look like it was female, because two reasons, right? If it was male, we would have to put a penis on it, and that started to become a bit porny.
Yeah,
and it started to become a little bit jokey as well. You put a penis on it, and then suddenly it's like it's just too much. It was just too much. It took away from the enormity of what we're looking at. So I thought, okay, there was a joke. There's a joke that goes around. It's basically the joke goes, when God made men, she was only joking, right? So because our common bias is that God is a man, and that, in old days, and not so much today, but 20 years ago, if you said a doctor, you immediately assume it's a man. If you said an architect, you immediately assume it's a man. If you said, that's how society was biased.
I mean, nowadays, even a lorry driver or a bus driver, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So God is a man, right? So that was the joke. But when you say aliens, are we automatically thinking they're men? So I thought, well, by making it a woman, or at least female looking, that puts a cat amongst the pigeons, because suddenly it jars with your bias, and it's like, well, why would a hoaxer do that? Why would they mess with us like that? And by making it a man's body with a vagina, it becomes asexual, it becomes non-sexual, and it becomes less porny and more eerie, So giving it a vagina and then making it look pregnant, that was a whole thing. We were looking at it thinking, oh, it's pregnant, right? And when they cut... So
also another aspect of that, I think it actually gives you more sympathy for that alien as well, for some reason. I don't know if you know what I mean.
I do, because there's a conflict. There's a conflict between the masculine, eerie, sinister thing, and there's this creature that's pregnant and dead because of us, and there's a baby inside, and you've got this conflicting thing going on where you feel sorry for it, but there's still this: is it the enemy? Are they coming in peace? Are they what's the situation? It's scary, So you've got all that going on, but when the surgeon opens the creature up, there is no baby. Okay, so now, well, what the hell is it? Well, the backstory, like I say, the whole backstory in the book tells you that it isn't pregnant. It isn't female. It's not a reproductive organ. It's a creature that's built. It's grown. It's genetically grown, and external extremities like a big nose or ears or a penis. All of these things are not streamlined. They're not necessary. So we got rid of all those extremities. If you look at the nose, it's very small. The ears are very low set and they're very small. Everything is streamlined. There's no hair. It's now if you look at Japanese and Chinese Asians, you see some features that actually fit with the alien concept, which is the hairless body. The eyes are higher set at a different angle, and the ears are smaller. The noses are smaller. There's a lot there. So it goes with that whole feeling that maybe we are sharing a DNA pool. Maybe we are, we're not just a pure human breed. So it all fits, and it all adds to it being real. It all adds to it looking and feeling real. Because it was black and white, I didn't have to worry about the color of it. In reality, the color was a pinkish grey. It wasn't. If you looked at it, you wouldn't say pink. You would say grey, but actually, it did have a pink hue to it. It had like a a little bit of pink. That if you looked at it, you could see the pink in it, but it was grey. And that was just for us, because it was never going to get seen. It was just for us. We just did it because we did it as a colour thing, knowing I'm going to film it in black and white. Because we deliberated: do we make the creature green? If we made it green, what colour green? What shade of green? Why? Why would it be green? Because other people, the little green men. No, we've got to go away from that, because that's jokey. It's too jokey. And we thought we'd have to make it more human looking, so that maybe on the surface, when somebody sees a photograph, they can say, maybe it's a deformed human. Maybe this human has been exposed to radiation. Maybe this human has some kind of genetic abnormality, and it's just a human being, right? And what that does is it lowers your defenses. You drop your defenses because you think it's not an alien, because nobody's going to go there. Nobody's going to say this is an alien. They're going to say, oh, I don't know if I believe this. I don't believe it's an alien. But if you believe it's a human, what that does is it stops you from thinking it's fake. Okay, because if it was all alien looking, you would simply say, I don't believe this equals fake, right? If I made it more human looking and alien looking, and you said, I don't believe it's an alien, but you know what? It looks like a human being, right? The word fake hasn't entered your mind yet. That isn't an option. It's either human or it's alien. What is it, right? That's the question that you're being asked. It's a subliminal question. Nobody's asking it outright, but it's a subliminal question. So most people that don't want to believe it's an alien will say it's a deformed human being, and this is a snuff movie. Some people said this is a real human being, and it's a snuff movie. It was a real person was used to make this look like it. I've had all sorts of explanations, but the level of detail and the level of misdirection is immense, and it's not immediately apparent. It doesn't come across immediately, not until we do what we're doing now. And so, where do we go now? Yeah,
well, I think another interesting aspect of it that really interested me, I thought was really quite startling, was the eyes. When you started taking the black coverage, because you obviously the description you hear of grey aliens, for instance, are the big black eyes, and you did in the film like removing a cover. I found that quite startling.
Yes. Well, the idea of that was, again, it's back to the dilemma of creating a piece of art and trying to stay with the remit of what people say an alien looks like, because you can't deviate too much. You see, if we took away too much, then we're so far away from what people think an alien looks like that it becomes something else. So the big black eyes were very important. The big head was very important. Because they're recognizable, that's the recognizable face of an alien. The problem I had with the black eyes was, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a cinematographer, I understand how lenses work, I understand how an eye works, and it can't work. If it's just one big pupil, it can't work, because a pupil opens and closes to let more or less light in. And if it's just one big black eye, that's in our eye, we've got a little bit of black in the middle, haven't we? We've got the pupil in the middle, and we have the iris. And those two things work together to let in more or less light. So if this is supposed to be an eye, no matter if it's human or alien, if it doesn't work in my mind, why will it work in your mind, and why will it work in an expert's mind, right? It doesn't work. So what is it? Now, I'd rather not have questions that are not answered, because I hate it when people say, well, do you know what an alien looks like? What do you know how an alien's eyes is very convenient? That's just a very convenient thing to do, and it doesn't answer the question, right? I'd rather create a hook and put my hat on it, I want to answer the question. So what better answer if that black eye wasn't actually a black eye at all? It's actually a lens. It's modern sunglasses. Okay, they're traveling through space. They're so close to the sun at times that maybe it's terrible. It's glaring. So they need protection. And you know what? They can't put a pair of glasses on like we wear them. One, the glasses would have gaps at the sides and the light would still get in, but their ears are too low set, so they wouldn't work in a traditional way. And glasses are old-fashioned. You know, if you go back really a long way and you get the monocle, and then some bright spark said, you know what, if we put a little bridge here to sit on our nose, and if we put legs over here, we can put them on our ears, and they stay on.
They're quite convenient ears, aren't they?
Yeah, but the glasses in themselves are actually quite a basic design. Yeah. They're not. They're a design. They're a necessity of design, not an invention. You know, somebody thought, well, I can put a piece of lens in front of my eye, and I can put it on a chain, and I can just close the other eye, and I can see, I can read, but that's inconvenient. You know, so it's only a necessity. They slowly thought, well, you know what, we should have one for each eye. But how do we keep it together? Well, we will put a bridge. You know what? That bridge looks like it sit on your nose. You know, it's a necessity of design, right? It's a sequence of events that made something that was necessary, and they designed it by default. Nobody sat there at one drawing and said, right, these are glasses and they're going to be like this. It happened bit by bit. So for a modern creature, especially the shape of head and where the ears are and the whole thing, they would already be ahead of us. So contact lenses are something we're here already. We're already got contact lenses. So to have a full eye sunglass contact lens made sense to me. So I said to John, paint an eyeball on the creature, make it realistic, and then what we'll do is we'll put some Vaseline or something into the eye to stop it sticking, and then we'll put some black latex into the eye, paint it in, let it dry, and now we've got a perfectly fitting rubber black cover that we can take off. And in the end, what we did, we used KY jelly, because with KY jelly we could put quite a lot on, like a layer that sat underneath, and then we poured the black latex into the eyeball, and then eased it around and let it set. So when you peel it off, the KY jelly comes up with it like gunk.
Yeah, like a mucus. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a lovely effect. And again, for nothing, just well thought out. So the whole idea was, how scary would it be when you suddenly peel back this black, and now you can see an eyeball turned up into the skull, and this is a dead creature now. It's reinforced. This creature is real and dead. And because up till that point, you're kind of watching an autopsy, and you're looking at, and you're still trying to make your mind up. What is it? And every time that something happens, it reinforces a little bit more of it being real, until it gets to a point where you buy it. You know, there's just too many things that make this real. So the whole idea of the black eyes and turning them into lenses, and it was creative license to make a nice effect that looked great, and it was also an explanation as to how these eyes work. If you're going to scrutinize this to death, will this work as a being, as a live being? Will it work? Well, there was a number of things that I haven't spoken about. I'll talk about this as well if you want. There's the nurse takes items from the creature as the surgeon cuts them out of the body and puts them into bowls, and she takes these pieces away to the table behind her, and then she writes some notes. And the idea is that in this situation, no one person would be looking at the whole creature. Only the guy that's doing the autopsy. But when they're doing the tests on the various pieces, like the heart, the brain, and the various pieces, they would go to a specialist in that field in a separate lab. And that person alone would be looking at that one organ and dissecting it and looking at it and making its conclusion, and comparing it to human and doing the thing. So with that in mind, what you need to do is you need to keep on top of it. So the nurse is writing notes as to what everything is and where it is, so that she can log it, tag it, and send it to the right lab. My problem was that she had to write with something. And if I used a Bic pen, I didn't know whether or not they existed at that time. If I use a fountain pen, I don't know whether it would be the right one for that year, or if they would have used a fountain pen at all, right? So I had to do something, because it was going to be in her hand and she was going to be writing with it. So in the end, I chose to use an unmarked pencil, because pencils have been around forever, and if it hasn't got a brand on it, so it doesn't say the name of the brand of the pencil, and it hasn't got a certain shape or pattern you get yellow ones with black lines, don't you? They're very well known. But although with black and white, you would still see the same look and feel, and you would associate it with a pencil that you can buy today. So what I did, I used a carpenter's pencil, which is just wood. There's no markings on it. It doesn't say HB, for example. Very important, because I didn't know whether or not anyone called a pencil an HB or an HP or whatever. I don't know if they did that in 1947 or whether that came in later. So, not wanting to take any chances, I ended up with a very straightforward plain pencil, and I couldn't have what she's writing down legible, because if you know about these things, and as it happens, Cyril Wecht, who is gone now, bless him, but he was one of the biggest pathologists in the world. Did all the big court cases. He did the O.J. Simpson case. He did a number of big cases, and he's the guy that they called into court cases to determine time of death, place, all that sort of stuff, and the method, purpose, how they died, and so he would know, and he was an old boy, so he would know, because he actually said on record, well, this is exactly what it used to be like back in the day. These are the tools they used to use, the handsaw and the bowls, everything's correct. So he remembered, he knew, because he was there. So would they have written down, what language would they have written down when they're writing down stuff for a lab to take? It would be a specific language. It would be a certain way of writing things. And I didn't know what that would be. So we couldn't show what was being written, but we had to show that something was being written. So if you look at it now that I've described it, if you look at the film now, you will see the pencil. You can't see what it is, so you can never date it. And you'll see that it's ever so slightly out of focus, and you'll see that actually the writing is scribbles. It's not writing at all. It's just curls and whirls and scribbles made into lines that just looks like you just can't see what it is because it's out of focus slightly. But actually, there's not a single word in none of it, right? because what people do, they blow up a frame, they fill in the spaces, and they create words. They see what it could be, and they work it out, So I couldn't chance that.
Yeah, unfortunately, Spyros, talking about pencils, we've actually got to draw a line right under that because we've run out of time. So you worked out that right well with the pencil. I'm really sorry that we've got to leave it there, but I've actually going into the next program, I think, with this now. But so I'm going to have to say goodbye and thank you very much for coming on again and clearing up a few more points, and all very fascinating. I will put a lot of this on the site as well, and links to you and everything else, and hope to run into you again sometime at some point.
I look forward to that.
Yeah, yes. I can't wait to see this film and your book and everything. It's exciting times, I must say. But I've got to say farewell now. Thanks Spyros, for coming on again, and
my pleasure.
Bye everyone out there. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.